Hunting is not easy. It never has been. It takes dedication, motivation, a lot of patience, and quality gear. If you manage a food plot, put up stands, or need just one more game camera, we can help at MidwayUSA.com. We opened our doors in 1977 and continue to put customers first by offering super fast, same-day shipping. For just about everything for the outdoors, go to MidwayUSA.com.
Friends of NRA is your chance to support our Second Amendment rights and preserve America's hunting traditions. Join Friends of NRA at one of our 600 exciting events nationwide. From games to auctions and exclusive firearms, Friends of NRA events are your chance to support a cause you care about while having a great time with patriots in your community. Whether you're a seasoned shooter, an avid hunter or outdoorsman, or passionate about freedom, there's a place for you within Friends of NRA. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you. Stand up for freedom with the Friends of NRA.
Just be sitting up there jacked with Pepsi.
I'm there for the pack out. You just got to pack me in.
Committed to the bow early on. Like, I love getting close and putting up.
You cover a range of stuff on here too, right? Like,
we call this the THP World Headquarters.
You know, my grandpa Roy Weatherby.
I came into like that golden little pocket where there was like 4 or 5 different bowls. Just
You're Canadian? We're doing a Canadian podcast.
My name's Douglas Bode.
I'm Robbie Denning.
Rourke Gamble.
Yeah, you sound like shit. Like you normally sound like shit, but you sound like extra shit.
You know what? Fuck you.
jeez.
You've been fighting a bad cold, eh?
Yeah. We're fucking damn near fighting words there. Yeah,
well,
I'm feeling much
you're
better.
Over there and I'm over here.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah, no, I feel it was pretty bad there last week, and we finally started feeling better when we went to Calgary on Saturday, but it was a long day Saturday. And then finally able to get back to work today, but it is what it is. I don't think I've been this sick in years. There's a couple times this year now already. Usually I'm like one cold and that's it. But whatever.
You're just getting old.
Getting old. I'm just here for right here. This is my money maker. Not my voice, just my face. So what's new?
With who? Me or Derek?
Well,
or
either
both?
one of you.
Derek's been busy. He's putting together all this presentation shit for the weekend here coming up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Went hard last night for sure.
Savage.
Yeah, it just trying to get 2 separate presentations done is kind of tricky, right? Because
what do they want you to do? They want you to do 2 different?
Yeah. So they wanted me to do 3. I'm like, whoa, I got work on Monday. Like I got the training and stuff too. So they want me to do
sucks in here.
They wanted me to do 1 on Friday, Saturday, the main event, and then Sunday too.
Holy shit.
On the main stage.
You got a long haul home. I got a long haul, but you got a really long
No,
haul.
his flight's 10 minutes. I was looking at the itinerary.
Yeah, it's an hour.
You son of a bitch.
On Friday,
right
I'm going back in time.
You're going to fly right over top of me.
Yeah, so Friday, it's more of so Friday is going to be kind of an introduction, so it'll be more like a main stage event. So that will be zeroing your rifle for long range hunting, target shooting. So it'll kind of touch base a little bit, kind of as a teaser for the main event of just, putting together a rifle, we're zeroing it out, why we're zeroing at 100, what's the mentality behind that, tracking, like we were talking about copper fouling, muzzle velocity changes, our productive round count, and then also too, like how that kind of plays into how we treat a rifle for maintenance, etc. And then truing data for shoot to turrets, or if we're doing our MOA and Milradian turrets with like a ballistic calculator, say like a Kestrel or like a Sig 3000 BDX or a Revic or something like that, or Leopold. And then the main, so that'll be like 20 to 30 minutes. And it's to not really give away the whole thing of the whole presentation. So I built 2 of them. And then the second one is the full comprehensive,
Nice.
from the ground up. And it's going to be, I hope we get through it, because like we did in the last podcast, it can go on a tangent, and I really hope that there's some engagement too to kind of open up the discussion, and if there's specific things that guys are wanting to talk about, because yeah, once you get into a can of worms like barrel construction or projectile construction, so I have pretty comprehensive from the ground up on the Saturday of like, if you were to buy a rifle, what are you looking for? How do we approach accurizing it from purchasing a rifle to cartridge selection, all the way up to full custom rifles, or accurizing your existing build that you have, that you might have an older rifle you really want to take to the next level, and I break down that too for the guys that are more budget minded, where they want to shoot a little further, they want to be a little more accurate, but they really don't want to be spending thousands of dollars into this stuff. So I have that broken down too, of like, what's the most bang for your buck? Triggers and stocks and barrels and like bedding your rifle or chassis and stuff like that. And then kind of the pros and cons, and kind of the whole build construction pyramid, where you have your priorities, right? Is it recoil, weight, accuracy, or accessories? And how those all kind of play together to, do you want your accuracy to go up? Well, your weight's probably going to go up, right? And then if your weight goes up, well, then you have a penalty. There's always all these penalties, right?
It's
so
a
like
trade-off of some sort.
Yeah, exactly. And then I talk about a little bit about like, keeping the emphasis on keeping it simple, keeping your approach known, like playing into your strengths of how you hunt. Like if you're hunting where you hike to a big spot and where you can glass everything, you want to shoot farther distance, that's a completely different build than the guy that's more mobile. They're driving around with their truck and they're spotting, and they have to do runs in on animals or shooting freehand. That's a different build. So pretty well have all of that covered. I just hope we can get through it all without getting into 2 hours, because
is that how long it is? I missed
like an hour.
When I was doing that dance around the table here, my microphone or my headset unplugged.
Yeah.
So I missed, if you said, I missed the whole thing. So can you repeat it? No, I'm just
Friday is like you'll be involved, Kevin.
No, I know, it's good.
I'll be putting you to work on the projector, whatever we got. I'm not sure what they got set up, but
what I want to talk about, hold on, my goat here, keep bumping him. I gotta move over. I had to move from that corner because I had shitty lighting in this room, but I had to move some stuff around for you boys so you guys can live in here. So I had to get rid of some stuff. But
hope you're ready to cuddle, Pete.
Yeah. So I got one cot and one sleeping bag. So you guys should be good.
Good. Only good.
It's a long one. It's not extra wide. It's just extra long for Derek. So
okay, perfect.
Anyway, it's gonna be fun. But I was thinking, what I want to talk about on the show that we're gonna do is a bit about. So we went to the BC Championships. Wyatt was shooting, which was pretty good. I want to talk a little bit about like the correlation between like target panic, like the process of long distance shooting, and like just the mental aspect between that and like archery. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because what I was noticing from watching, like, not only like dissecting my own kids shooting, which I do a lot, but everybody else's shooting that was down there, and even like the men that were shooting, and just like how you can tell where these little things were interrupting their shot process and not being able to regroup and fall back into it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it's just simple things of like you're all in a line and like the side of your eye catches the bow beside you because you're so close falling down beside you, and that distracting you from that, just that little tiny microsecond is pulling you away from your conscious thoughts on your shot process. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah, I actually
I
really
noticed
do.
it
Yep.
quite a bit. I noticed it quite a bit watching those people shoot. Like they'd shoot really like just super hyper focused, but they fell out of that focus and they couldn't engage back into it really quickly.
Some of the people that you noticed, excuse me, did you happen to know any of them? And
No.
okay. I only asked that because it would have been curious to know if any of them had played at any sort of high level sport, hobby, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Where they've had to focus in other sports, and whether they were able to bring that over to the archery side, and if they still are having problems, or that's.
Well, I know. So like when you watch people shoot, a lot of people like, so when I shoot, if I can at any time I could fall out of my shot, like I pull through my shot. So when I'm going to pull through, I know exactly when that shot's going to break.
Mm-hmm.
I can get almost to the point of it breaking. I can let down again, and then I can get back there without even drawing back on my bow. But that's mental focus of like not, and like some people say it's like everything should be subconscious when you're shooting, and I don't believe that. I think you should be in control of what you're doing and have total control of like everything going on. Where so like if the wind's blowing really hard, you're not letting it deviate from your process, and you're just waiting. But as you're waiting, you're still consciously focusing that pin on what needs to happen, while still at the same time holding it right till it's at the point of breaking. And then as soon as that wind dies down, you just let it go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I noticed a lot of guys that were shooting, like they'd shoot an arrow. If they're the first one to let go of that arrow would be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're in the middle of their shot, and like you're watching them shoot, and like from the time like their first shot would be in like 7 seconds, their next shot is 12, and it's not as good as their first one. But the guy beside him, his bow dropped. And so there's a lot of things going like that, and you can watch people and like they just had a hard time of recalibrating their brain to be in like, that doesn't matter. I'm going to stay focused on what I need to do. And like all this outside noise doesn't affect me.
It's funny
So
too,
I'm like,
because I remember back at Nationals last year in the summertime, you didn't have other people beside you shooting at the exact same time. But before that, a good buddy of mine, Cody Statham, he's the one who helped me with my shot process and making sure it was the exact same every single time. And you get into that focused aspect a lot more, and you have a lot less distraction. So I started watching other people that were in my group, and everybody had their very own shot process. And it was funny because when you're actually looking for it, it only takes a few targets, and you'd be like, okay, this person's going to do A, B, C, D in this order every time.
Mm-hmm.
And I could pick out in a heartbeat. And I'm not saying that there was any major distraction, a noise or anything like that. But if for whatever reason, they didn't do the exact process, I won't say they had a bad shot, but it definitely wasn't as good as, let's say, their previous 3 in a row where they followed everything. Because you could see it right away and be like, whoa, that person. And you don't want to say anything, obviously, because you don't want to interfere.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed that.
Well, and you're competing against them. But that's the thing, is that's what I've noticed is like people, some of the guys that were shooting, most of them, they couldn't recalibrate themselves once something happened after they've already started their shot process. They've gone through in their head, like when nothing's happening, you're going through your shot process, whatever it is, you're drawing back, blah, blah, blah. And it's like perfect. But then somewhere through that shot process, something happens to distract you or break up your concentration of that shot process, and they just can't recalibrate themselves or find themselves back in that perfect rhythm. So I was just curious, like, about shooting a rifle and how that compares to that process when you're shooting a bow. Because I've never been like, when I shoot a rifle, it's like, well, put those crosshairs there and just hit that trigger as hard as you can. Close your eyes and shoot.
Yeah.
Kind of like you in archery.
Don't go right. Yeah, there is a lot of similarities. You do have to have your shot process established. So what that means is like it starts from right from the ground up. Like fundamentals of marksmanship is square to the rifle, leveling out your rifle, parallaxes, all these checklist items you have to do. And when you're on the firing line, that's one thing, right? You get out in the field and that changes drastically and quickly, right? Because so there are some things that I've tried to do that changes the mindset, kind of snap you out of, say for instance, for rifle, I'll do dry fires. And that's one thing that you can do that you can't with necessarily with a bow, right? You can't, you can practice.
Don't do any dry
can't.
fires.
No. But like, I mean, like you can't with a bow and arrow, you can't ever really practice without that initiating explosion. Right.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like, essentially that rifle is exploding in front of you and you're anticipating it. But at the same time, it's similar with the arrow letting go. A lot of people, like at the beginning, a lot of people freak out because they think the string's going to hit them, right? And that's a part. But essentially, it's like you still see a lot of people who are experienced shooters and they still have like a reaction to that arrow leaving the string, whether it's like a quick flinch, close of their eyes, or something. If you record them and watch in slow motion, there is something that they naturally react to that they just can't control.
I think, and I'll find this especially with maybe they're experienced shooting, but they don't have a shot process. So I used to shoot every Wednesday with one of my friends. We were avid reloaders at the time, and this is when we're really starting to shoot longer distances, shooting groups regularly, tracking our progress. But he would shoot kind of sporadically, right? Like he never had a process. So he wasn't like he would shoot, we're shooting 200 yards, shoot half-inch group, really good group. Okay, like half-inch, 3/4 inch. What'd you do? Had no idea, right? Had no idea. He's just, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but really he didn't have any idea of what he was doing. And I talked to him about like, well, I'm square behind the rifle. I have my head position, my cheek pressure. I think though, if you're it comes down to the way that you're training, where maybe you spend sufficient amount of time where I'm gonna just focus on my grip, and I'm gonna do my dry fire process with rifle. That's what we do. I'm gonna get because when we were talking about like the cold bore, cold clean bore, cold bore, cold foul bore, there also is something called cold shooter. Right? Cold shooter is probably the more profound thing where you're mentally not in the game. You're not thinking about your first shot. Like maybe you're just missing because you're not warmed up, right? You're not mentally warmed up. You could be shooting, but you're just shooting. That's where we're talking about, like in this first podcast I did with you, shooting with a purpose, training with a purpose. So every single time you're instilling those good habits of, okay, I come close to where I'm going to shoot. And exactly like you're saying, like when I'm following through, I'm sitting, I'm hanging out. I can stop this process at any time. And I can let off. If something's not right, why reinforce failure? Why reinforce bad habits, right? So just instilling, okay, I'm going to go through my shot process step by step, nailing down each one. And I'll do a process too, where like with rifles, I'm fortunate that, I was taught by good mentors that tell me these different tricks, mental tricks, right? Of how to train your mind to not get freaked out, sometimes it's sound, like exactly what you're talking about. I see with shooting, sound is this audible cue that really messes with people. You'll see it on a firing line where, they're shooting on their own and they're shooting just fine and they're producing a pretty tight group. You start getting a lot of background noise, things like breaking their shot process, just like you say, it just breaks their concentration for 1 second and they're already at the aiming phase. They're screwed.
Yeah,
They
that's what I was talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they just can't
yeah.
Once they've already established what's going to happen, they've already started, their brain has already started cycling through their shot process, and if anything breaks their concentration, they just can't. It's like you almost have to start. They'd almost have to like draw down and restart the whole process again, rather than just being like, like if I'm at full draw and I'm ready to let that arrow go, something can break my concentration. I could look at you, do something, and I can pick up exactly from where I left off in my shot process and just continue through the shot.
I think breathing too is one thing that like from an anticipation point too. So like with long range rifle, so what we'll do is we'll say if you're trying to train somebody to produce good groups, right? We're doing load testing, but sometimes I'll break that up where I'll say shoot dots so that you're not worried about don't worry about producing groups. Groups are anxiety. It's just like what you're talking about with competition. You shooting, you want to get tens minimum, right? You're shooting. You're trying to get higher up on the leaderboard. That's where you're going to see that anxiety. It's the same thing as shooting groups, right? So I like say when I was trying to train out a flinch out of my one of my cousins, I was trying to shoot get a process in his mind when he's shooting where he's not constantly just that anxiety of the explosion, that initiation of firing. So I would put unloaded cartridges in his gun and I would see him just jerk that trigger and do this big jolt. Like, see, you're not focusing on following through on your shot. You're anticipating the explosion. And that's where that hanging out on the edge and then just letting your natural respiratory pause dictate your shot, it'll calm you. Because then you're like, okay, I know I need to shoot, where it's like, shoot. That's how I calm myself, because then I already know, okay, I've already gone through 3 breaths. I know where I'm at with my respiratory. And then you develop a rhythm. And then the rhythm gets rid of the anxiety. And then all I got to focus on, because I've already leveled my rifle, I've loaded my rifle, I've done my dry firing, my parallaxing is correct, my body positioning is correct, everything feels tight and secure, cheek pressure, shoulder pressure, loading the bipod. When I'm following through my shot, that's where I let my respiratory pauses dictate my shot, and I just hang out and I'm ready. So I know exactly when that trigger is going to break. And then I can predictively, when that natural respiratory pause, I'm the most calm and I have the least chance of anything with my body anxiety wise. I'll send you there's some stuff for long range rifle. There's all these processes about like holding your breath, progressing your trigger tension, and then exhale and then follow through, all these things that there's been a lot of studies and government funded stuff in the States as far as like military stuff of like what's the true process for firing weapons in general. And that's just what's worked for me, is I let that natural respiratory pause dictate when I'm firing. Because in long range rifle shooting, you'll have a spotter over your shoulder and they say like, okay, 5 mile an hour call on your wind, 1 MOA left. So I'll hold left. I have to shoot in my next available breath. Like as it comes down, as I exhale, shoot, reload, and he'll spot your impact. Because if you don't, and you let your breathing dictate and you're not doing it in those pauses, you're not as accurate. You'll have too much anxiety, and then the recoil will actually exploit the fact that you have a bunch of air in your chest. You actually see some inconsistencies occur from that. So you just get in a rhythm, right? Where you're like, gate, shoot, respiratory pause, shoot, respiratory pause, shoot. Because at any point he could say, nope, spotter not ready, hold, hold, wait, because he has to. You have to shoot in that wind window, right?
Well, and that's the same. Like it a little different when you're shooting because I think like when you're shooting with a rifle, you're like when you're shooting like with a pin, your pin is never constant, right? It's always constantly doing a little bit. It always has movement, right? But yeah, I'm just really curious. Like I really noticed it. Obviously, like when you're watching the kids shoot, you're looking at their inconsistency and stuff, and you're like, well, why can't you just do that every single time, right? But you got to also remember, like, their kids are like, like why it's 12, right? So, yeah, it's just like I have a hard time explaining it to other people. Like I know exactly what they're doing, I just don't know how to explain. I need a better explanation of what they're doing and maybe how to help them fix it.
I would suggest cues, audible cues where you slow down the shot process with say your son he's stepping up on the line and you're saying out because if you're going to teach someone there's obviously there's 2 to 3 different ways they're going to learn, right? They're going to learn by reading it, seeing it, or doing it, or explaining it, right? Is the last part of that to kind of come back. But so I would say like you stepping up on the line, walk him right down his shot process. And
yeah, that's what we started.
Say it as he's doing it.
And that's one thing I tried it, a while ago, and like, hey, it doesn't matter what your process is, but everybody has one. So you need to figure it out for yourself. So if it's like, whatever it is, you breathe, and then subconsciously you say, say whatever, like click, pin, pull, or whatever, like whatever, right? But that just say that in your head and just have a shot process. Don't just go up to the line, look at the pin, breathe out, draw back, and shoot. That ain't going to get you anywhere. You have to have a process, and the process has to be the same every single time you do it. It can't be any different anytime.
Yeah.
It always has to be the same. We've been working on that. But it's not, and like I said, it's not just him. Like I was noticing even the men that were there, and like it's funny when you watch all those shooters, you can really dissect someone's shot. Like if you just sit there and you watch them at the line shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting, and you're watching, you're like, man, like, and I had a set of binoculars, right? And then like, it looks like they're torquing the bow, and then you look down and every arrow's at a different angle, and you're like, yeah, well, there's a reason that's like that, is because you're torquing that bow. But there's like, there's so many things going on, and it's funny. It's like, man, like I guess it just.
The other thing too on that is those people have to be receptive and wanting to learn.
Yeah, well, like, and I wasn't going to go up to anybody, like somebody down there that's shooting at a competition, being like, your shot would be a lot better if you did this, this, and this, or didn't do that. They'd be like, who the fuck are you, and why aren't you shooting? Like, well,
yeah, I've had a few teenagers that they're starting out. They got lots of potential. They're having fun out there. And you try to just pick one thing, not like, oh, you need to do this and this and this and this. And like, well, why don't you just, try this one thing here? I was doing the exact same thing, and I changed this one thing, and my groups just got super tight, or not, in comparison, a lot tighter. And sometimes they're very receptive and they try it right away. And other times it's just like, I'm not doing that. You just kind of smile and be like, all right, yeah, no problem. You look at the parents. I mean, a couple of these people, I know the parents very well, and just kind of, chuckle a little bit. Be like, kids, sometimes you can teach them, and sometimes you just have to wait for them to want to be taught.
Well, it's reps too, because like Wyatt and I will go into the garage, and we have a big target there, like a 4x4 target. And it's like, it's just like repeatability. Like he has to do that. He has to practice this so much. So it's like getting out of bed and putting his feet in the ground. You know what I mean? Like he has to do it so much. And like so there was like, he was really punching. So like We moved him. I think I already said this. Like we moved him from a trigger or like a wrist strap to a thumb release, and then he was really punching that thumb release, so I put him to a back tension, and then he was still like twitching that back tension release, and which is like I didn't think you could hammer a back tension, and he showed me you could. So and I was like, so we've been working on like just getting that, and then like his follow through with his bow, like he's dragging his shot and like all this stuff, and it's like there's so many little things, and it's like, and I get the fact that like he's at the point now where it's like, okay, like you're either all in or you're gonna do it. Like if you want to be where he talks about being, these are all the things that we need to get out of you right now. So like we set up videotapes, and like I videotape him and I show him. So not just me saying it, I'm showing him exactly. Then I'll say, watch me shoot. And then like how I'm shooting, pulling through, and like all this stuff, and like watch where my bow goes after the shot, and like this stuff, right? Like, and I even he was really hammering it, and I just couldn't get it out of him. So what I did was I took one of his old bows, I torqued it down to like I think like 20 pounds, 18 pounds. I took the peep sight, put a whisker biscuit on, and that's it, and a D loop. That's all he had on there. No peep sight, no nothing, and it was like stood 2 feet in front of the target, 3 feet in front of the target, and it was like, here's a box of arrows. Shoot! I want you to shoot all these arrows. When I see, and then I had him marking on the paper tuner. I had him felt marking every time he shot a round, and one round was 20 arrows, so every 5 would have been 100. And I'm like, I'm not giving you your other bows back until I see at least 1,000 arrows shot this way. And it helped it got him out of the point of doing that. But then he went back outside and then stopped doing that, and then fell back into the habit of doing that again. Like he didn't do that. There wasn't enough reps there. Do you know what I mean? Like that 1,000 arrows wasn't enough. It has to be like maybe 10,000, or it has to be enough where he's just not thinking of it. Because as soon as he starts thinking, yeah, like subconscious but conscious of what is going on in his shot process, like it's like when he starts thinking about one thing, something else goes. Do you know what I mean? If he's focused too much on like his pin, or like his anchor being too tight to his face, or like too much nose pressure on his string, or like if his grip is in the right position, if there's something that's not, if he focuses on something else, then that's the first thing that seems to deviate from where it's supposed to, is like pulling through the shot, and he just snaps it. And obviously when he snaps it, all that, it's just ricocheting through the bow, right? And that affects your arrow down range. So we've really been working on that. But that all this stuff is just mental. That's all it is. It's just in your head, right? Because if you could do it once, you could do it again. It's just figuring out a way to mentally teach yourself to do it the exact same every single time. And that's what archery is. It's like repeatability. There's not really necessarily, like there's not a proper way to shoot. Like every pro shooter shoots a little differently. I mean, you don't want to torque the bow. There's certain fundamentals that you need, but everyone shoots differently. There's no right way to shoot, or else everybody would shoot that exact same way. So everyone shoots a little different. But the thing is, it's just figuring out mentally how to repeat the same movement over and over and over and over and over, and do it the exact same. Because you can tune a bow, you can build a bow, build an arrow, do anything you want to match you. So that's like right now where I am at with him, is like, it's just like, that's what we're working on, is like the mental part, just like building a sequence where that is repeatable for him. That's where I struggle with, is like just being like, because I'm just like, well, just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Like, just fucking do it like that every single time. Like that shot was perfect. Do that again. No, it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
I wonder if it gets to the point where he doesn't, do you think it's that he just doesn't understand when he does a perfect shot? Do you think that he doesn't actually understand what he did, in his head? I did this, this, and this to get that shot.
Yeah, and it's just tough, right? And
I mean,
like
he's young too, so it's
12, and
learning.
so it's like, yeah, and it's a lot, right? It's like, and it's,
do you know what I would do? I would put up like a little whiteboard, and you have the evolution of 10 weeks or whatever, however many steps you put in your shot process, and then write down the form. That's what I had to do for a while there, where I was trying to diagnose some of my pin float problems or anxiety. Was I stance is one thing, like it's pretty quick, right? But I'm just gonna focus on stance. I'm just gonna mentally really focus on every time I shoot, I'm putting emphasis on my stance. Stance. And then the rest I'm just putting reps to get strength, right? When I'm starting my season up again. And then grip. So before I start, every time I actually have one of those fake handles where those grips, and I just sit in there and I just kind of close my eyes and I think about what that feels like when I'm putting my hand up. And I actually take a Sharpie and I'll put it right on my lifeline and be like, I need that base of my bow to go there. And I'll grab my bow and I will put my hand directly in that position. And I'll do that every time before I start the shot. And I'll do that for like a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I do it every day until it's so ingrained in your mind that this feels good. It'll be almost automatic. And then now I've done stance for a week. I've done grip for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll do, anchor. And I'll just, anchor, string contact. And I'll slow down right before that shot, where the shot isn't even the important part. It's just that focusing on, I'm anchoring. What does that feel like? Really focus my mind on what that feels like.
Yep.
And I'll do that for a week. And then I'll get to the aiming part, leveling my bow. Okay, level. And then, and then anchor, shot, and then the shot. And then at the very end, I'll usually have some sort of audible cue in my mind where I'm like, a positive affirmation. I did get a little bit of coaching here in Lethbridge for archery and stuff like that. And the one thing that he had always said to me was, don't say what you're not going to do. Affirm what you're going to do. Don't say, don't drop your arm. Say, stay in the shot.
I like that.
Stay in the shot. So I would just in my head, stay in the shot. Put the pin on what I'm aiming. Keep it there. Don't float it. Don't come up and then down. Don't come low and then up. Keep it on. It can stay on there. Like, just stay in the shot, and then just that natural respiratory pause, and then your final shot process for your trigger. Because maybe it's just there's too many things where if something trips him up and then he's forced to go back in his shot process, where you've like, do this, and then he gets to the aiming, and then all of a sudden your bow goes like, tweaks out, like it's not level, or something weird feels, or you should move your shoulder forward, or something of his form is off, because then that's going to stop him from aiming. Then he'll have anxiety over aiming because his mind is still trying to aim, but then his mind's also trying to fix his other form. So maybe some way to somehow get him where he can move forward and back in his shot process might help.
Yeah, that's what and like we've gone through these processes. Like when he was young, I put a piece of tape on his hand for his grip, shoulder, and like leveling your bow. But like when you're hitting, the difference between like even leveling your bow, and like your bow can't just be between the lines. It has to be a millimeter on each side, right? Because we're talking about a difference between a 10 and a 9.
Yeah.
Which is half an inch. And so that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these little things that make you shoot from a half an inch to the left to a half an inch to the right. And like these details are so minute, because like if you're just shooting for the center at 20 yards, that center is, it's the size of a toonie or even bigger. You know what I mean? But when you're shooting at these targets where the 10 is less than an inch, there's a big difference. And like these are the things that I like, these little tiny details, and like that's where it's like the slightest little, like it's not even like a big thing, it's just a little tiny thing, but the little tiny thing is just enough where you're, even if you have to fall back into that, like something happens and there's noise going around. You notice it a lot on the line because there's a lot going on, but even like just consciously, that's what I was talking about. Like, you're shooting 3 vertical pins, and like the first time you're drawing on target, but now you're drawing off. You might be drawing off target because that's your process, and now you do have to bring it down a little bit to get to that second pin, and maybe that's throwing you off a bit. Just these little tiny things, but it's always something. Do you know what I mean? And that's where it's like just a little tiny, like even like, and like a tiny little snap of the wrist or a pull of the finger is enough to make that arrow go half an inch higher. But that's the difference at these tournaments, is like those little tiny minute details. And that's what I noticed he was doing, like just that little snap. And like when you slow it down on video, you can see it. Or like a little handshake, right? On his third draw because he's shooting too quickly, right? You get 2 minutes to shoot. You cycle through your first 2 shots, and then on the third one, your hand starts to shake a bit. Things like that, little things like that, or not sitting down in between after your shot.
Yeah, not resting your front arm. I think the front arm stability has so much more to do with your accuracy than I think most people think about. Like if you're shaking or if you're weak on your front arm and you're not resting your front arm, especially when you're getting into those long ends where you're getting to your high count on your arrows.
If you have any
difference.
compression on your shoulder, like on your shoulder joint, if it's up at all, if you don't have a relaxed shoulder and it's down, good luck, because you're essentially just holding your muscles and your tendons and everything. You're getting lactic acid in there. So that's part of your shot process. But like, I mean, these little details, like we're working on like the fine things now. And it's just like, it's really hard to like, just like explain it, being like, where this is the difference. Like this little tiny thing
makes all the difference
between that being a 10 or missing the line and being a 9. Right. It was a quarter of an inch to the right, which is like, you're shooting, that's the width of an arrow, really, like being one arrow to the left or the right, which is like, but when you're shooting at these competitions, and if you're getting into the level of like, I know he's only 12, but like, if you want to compete, this is the stuff you have to be focusing on. Doesn't really like, to be the best, you're going to have to focus on this stuff, right? Like these are this is the discipline and the difference between being the best and just being good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not going to change 10 years from now. It's still going to be those exact same little things that are going to.
Well, that's what I mean.
First and fourth,
and like you look at it, like Wyatt. I mean, like he did really well. I mean, like he shot the lights, like he shot lights out, right? But it's like, what? Like, are you happy with where you were, Wyatt? Like I asked him, I'm like, name one thing you did right, or name one thing you're happy with, and name 10 things that you thought you could improve on. Right? It's always like it's easier to name the 10 things where you're like, yeah, I know I needed to, I didn't do this very good. And like his first 3 shots, like he missed the target, like not first 3, but like the first day he was nervous as hell and he missed the target, like didn't miss the target, but it was off the rings, 3 out of 5 shots. Like he was just like so jacked sitting there. And then he calmed himself down. The second day he shot better, but it's still like, it was a lot, but it's not the point. It's like, if you want, you're going to have to learn these. If you want to be where you say you want to be, you're going to have to learn all these things. You're better off learning them now when you're 12.
And that was his first indoor, like, serious shoot, right?
Yeah, that was his first shoot with like where the judges are keeping your score.
Yeah.
Like he shoots the junior archery and stuff in town, but it's like you take your scoreboard down, go count you and your partner count your score. But this was like judged.
So it'll be interesting to see if once he does a couple more of those with judges, you know what I mean? It's different when you're just shooting, doing the exact same thing, but without judges and people like locked in on you, making sure you're following all the rules, this, that, and the other thing. But it'll be interesting to see when you'll be working on the process and everything. But once he's used to it, having judges there won't phase him after a while. They're just going to be, oh yeah.
Well, and all of that, like that,
there. She's been at
that many people on the line, right?
Yeah.
And but that's where I was like, dude, you need to embrace this being this young, because like not everybody has the opportunity to come here when they're, to go through this stuff when you're young. Because if you can learn it now, go through this and adapt, if you could do, I mean, the thing about doing hard and uncomfortable things is you do them and then all of a sudden they're not hard and uncomfortable anymore. If you never do anything that's harder, makes you uncomfortable, everything is going to seem hard and uncomfortable. So that's why you would just put yourself in these situations, and then all of a sudden everything just seems easy. It's not a big deal, right?
Yeah.
But
I think over time too, he'll learn, especially if he goes to enough of these competitions, he'll learn to almost blur out anybody and anything that's around him. Like those movies that you see with the professional baseball players, and you know what I mean? They're going through their process and they show it, and the whole crowd all of a sudden is a blur. That shit's for real for people who are at an elite level. Like they can just tune everybody out.
yeah,
It's
well,
just
and that's
them
what
and the
what I
target.
was what we were talking about earlier is like being in that zone where like these things don't affect you. Do you know what I mean? Like being able to go through your shot process and then all of a sudden fall out of it, but still being able to snap right back into it and still execute.
Yeah.
Rather than being like, you get to that point where you're at whatever point in your process, it doesn't matter. And then something happens. And now it's like, you don't know how to adapt or adjust. Your brain you consciously can't fall back into that shot process correctly in order to execute a perfect shot.
Yeah, you see that in like in rifle a lot, where people will chase their problems and it only gets worse.
Well,
They'll
and
think, an impact is, it's hitting, I'm hitting right. Oh, now I'm hitting left.
Yeah.
Now I'm hitting this. Instead of just refocusing on, something obviously broke down. Stick to the plan, man. I've trained this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing I noticed too, is like after every shot, a bad shot, and I watched the guy do a bad shot. It wasn't his sight, and he's dialing his sight.
Yeah.
Not being like, that was a shitty shot.
Yeah. Now you're overcompensating for it and you're just making it worse.
Yeah.
Like, and two, like we'll see with like distractions too. Like if I think someone's distracted, like on a firing line, say if there's like 3 people shooting, you can tell right away that they're flinching from someone else's shots. I'll double up their ears. So I'll do like earbuds and ear pros, like electric ear pros. I'll turn down the volume to like nothing. And then that way they're locked in the shot, and they're not having that distraction or like noise really affects people. I think especially when they're like in their own head thinking. That's one thing that I've done for rifles, where if I see someone is pulling shots hard, it's okay, stay in the shot, follow through in the shot, I'll get them to think about their finger. Think about aiming, but think about your trigger finger, and think about pulling that trigger and pulling it to the rear and holding it to the rear until everything is done. And that I notice has helped a lot of people, where they stay in the shot because they're focusing on, okay, I gotta hold that trigger to the rear, and I gotta stay in the shot until I've fully recovered from the shot, so that they have something almost distracting their brain. I think that's what it is, because they're aiming, okay, I'm ready to take the shot. They're focusing on the feeling of the trigger and it breaking over, but then they stay in the shot. You'll see that with like gas guns, where like precision rifle and bolt guns, the trigger is the end of the process in a lot of people's minds, right? Versus like ARs or semi-automatics, like some of the guys that I know that are in the States, where like they got precision rifle for that. And that's the starting switch is the trigger. That's the start of the process, because this whole initiation, this whole chain of ergonomics occurs, and you have to stay in the shot the entire time because your accuracy will be degraded. And that's where I think like that kind of taught me, like, okay, so like when we get to the shot process itself, if you can train yourself to stay in the shot by like, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger, but I'm also going to hold the trigger to the rear. I'm going to just focus on that. Or some sort of audible thing where I'm like, okay, I'm getting close, and I'm like, this is it. That's what Joel Turner says, that he needs an audible thing, because that snaps the brain out of that closed loop where it's just you're continually like, you have to shoot, instead of being an open feedback where you can let down whenever you want, you can stop the shot whenever you want. You feel like you're in complete control. Maybe that's what he's talking about with that, because again, we see that with rifle big time. And there's ways of doing it, like dry firing, doubling up ears, shooting dots. I'll throw empty cartridges into to see if people are flinching, having them stay in the shot, pulling to the rear to follow through, or shooting with a time limit. I'll do that too, where like I'll say like, Kate, you're going to engage a target at like 300 and then 600 immediately. Here's your turret adjustment. Here's your wing call, and you have it on like a Y-bad wrist band where you have like your elevation, your wind holds, and then train to like shoot 200, then shoot immediately at 600. That'll force someone to go very rapidly, and they don't have enough time to think about the shot as much as just the feeling of the shot going through the shot process. They don't have time to go backwards. They have to engage the target, move to the next one, engage the target, move to the next one. And then they get in that, like I was talking about, that rhythm again, where it's like engage the target, move on, engage the target, move on. And then their process seems to smooth out. That is one thing I talk about in the presentation too, of like working on each element till a smooth and slow process emerges, and then build speed and slow down at your vulnerabilities.
Like it.
Yeah, it's
definitely going to be trying some of that stuff this year. Just when I head out to the range and stuff and plink away, just focus on some of that stuff for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's similar between archery and rifle. Just shooting targets is something so unique about
it. The mental part is like, that's where I find like it's all mental, and like when you're shooting, it's like it's in your head. It's like if you can do it once, you can do it again. You just mentally have to learn how to repeat that over and over and over and over and over and over. And like, not like, if something happens along the way, not fall out of that process, and just to maintain that, that a lot of people can't do it. Like I watched and I was like, Jesus, like, well, there's a lot of people who can't do it. Now, I don't know if it just comes with reps of shooting all that, or if it's just in your, like, if it's just some people have it, some people don't. If it could be taught, it's got to be able to be taught, because I mean, like, it's just, what did you say there? Open loop, closed loop? I know I've heard that before.
Yeah. So it'd be like difference between like a golf swing. Like you can't stop. Like once you initiate, there's no going back or swinging back.
Well, momentum's kicked in, right?
Right. But
even if you want to, you can't.
Exactly. So you want to make sure that you're always in that.
So what do you mean? So
space.
Is that an open loop or is that a closed loop? So that's closed. It's no.
I'm pretty sure that's closed. Yeah. And then open would be like I can go forward or back in my shot process mentally.
Yeah. And see, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. Like in archery, you can go forward and back. Like even when I'm shooting, I can get right to the point of where that little tiny spring is going to come undone. Like it's going to flick past it, and the release is just going to go in the air. And at that point, it's gone. Nothing I can do about it, right? But up until that point, I can switch. I can rotate my hand, switch, but get back to full, and then go right back to where I was without having to go through any of my shot process and just fall back into it.
So in target for rifle, there's two different approaches that I've seen where, okay, like we build up the weight of the rifle, so the rifle's very, very solid, and then people will use like hair triggers or like 12-ounce trigger pulls. And so what I've noticed, like when you implement that into like a changing dynamic environment, that those guys don't do as well, because that trigger surprises them, and amateurs will think they're a really good shot when they have those like 12-ounce triggers, but then it really screws them over later, because knowing when the shot breaks is a crucial skill to get past mentally, I think, because like you only say, oh, it should surprise you, kind of, but not really. I don't agree with that at all. Like
that's the same with people say with a back tension release, is like, oh, that should just, you should know when it's going to go off. Well, you should always know when it's going to go off. You should have complete control of that thing at all times until it gets to the point where there's absolutely no turning back. But by then, you've already known, you've already made a conscious decision like, this is going to go. Ready? Go. But anytime before that, you should be able to get out of that zone and then find that zone right back where you left off. It's like going to the 4th floor, and then you don't have to go to the lobby to get back to the 5th. You just go from the 4th to the 5th.
Yeah.
And then,
I know exactly what you're talking about, because like the same thing, like if you're in a dynamic situation, you do have to have the ability to get your mind into a command shoot space quickly, right? Because that's where like too, like when I was talking about like the differences between like, you don't want to get super heavy into like for hunting. This is for hunting. You don't want to get so much into the mind space of target where you lose your ability to shoot moving targets, and changes are just going to break you down and just crush you. You do have to like implement some change too, where you're like, change is good. Change is okay. I need change, because if you train in the same thing, like exactly what Pete was talking about, that person that had that little change, it just destroys them, right, in their shot process. So I don't know how you would do that with archery, but maybe shooting at different distances, maybe shooting close and far, shooting dots, shooting groups, but that's exactly what it is though, is that command shoot. You'll see that with guys that have really, really light triggers. They'll shoot a 3-shot group. It'll be great. They'll shoot a 5-shot group. They'll have a flyer almost every single time, because when it surprises you, you can have inaccuracies with that, versus the person that has like I like having all my rifles at 2 pounds, 12 ounces or 13 ounces, so that I can build pressure and I am in complete control. And I know exactly when I'm going to, I exhale and I have my shot process, and I can just give that little bit extra oomph, and then it's going to initiate the firing sequence. And then that's how I manage that kind of process of the ebbs and flows and rhythm of shooting, right?
Yeah. Man, it's super.
It's
right
fascinating,
now
and it's so hard to explain.
I have a hard time explaining it. Like in my mind, it's just clear as day. Like in my mind, it's like, it's just this.
Yeah.
This is like the only way. It's like it's so linear. It's just like, this is it. There's no other, it's not like
no other way. Yeah.
Not gray or black. It's not, it's just black and white. It's straight. Like, this is the only way. It's really hard for me to explain it. It's really hard for me to explain it to my 12-year-old son. Like just fucking do that every time. And then like, without getting mad after the 50th time that it didn't go right.
Yeah.
When it went right the first time, the next 49 are like shit. And you're like, what the fuck, man? Why are we here still?
Yeah, I think though it comes back to, if you have that experience, like all of us have gone through it, where you just know and you expect that things are not going to go as planned. So when you're working through your shit and you're not going to get discouraged, you're just like at the start of the year, if I haven't been shooting in a while, because these are all depletable skills, they all go away.
Yeah, they're perishable for sure.
Yeah.
And anything like right now, I'm dealing with my eye issue, right? And so like right now, I can't see the pin it's fucked. I can't see a pin.
Yeah.
When I'm shooting, I have 0 pin. So I'm working with that, but I still shoot and I can still group, but I've also learned how to group out of I know how to use my sight to group. Do you know what I mean? I can shoot one arrow and then look at the top ring of my sight housing, and I can put the arrow exactly where I want to, where it'd be the same as a pin. But I've learned how to do that, like make, just audible and change, but that's me though. And I'm not like,
yeah, but you've been through it. And that's the thing that I was saying is like, I used to get really frustrated when I'm like, man, like this was not productive. Well, no, it was productive. And just like, this is part of it. You suck.
Yeah. Well,
it's
true.
Like, don't take yourself so seriously that you're just frustrated. You're mad at it. I'm like, the whole point of it is to get better. Okay. This is part of it. This is integral part of the process of getting good at anything, is that I just expect, okay, I'm going to go through, it's going to be pretty rocky here. I'm going to take the time that while I suck, I'm not going to have these high expectations for my shot. I'm going to work on the individual components. And then you get through it, and then everything starts shooting. You start shooting better again. It's like, yeah, it's just part of it.
Oh yeah, yeah, you do definitely with archery too. And like I went through target panic early on, and I haven't had target panic for a long time. But I can really control my shot, and I can control everything. And like right now, that eye issue is the only difference. But I don't stop shooting, and that has zero effect on my shot. I don't let it bug me, and I just figure out ways to work around it. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna have to sort out either with a clarifier. Or like I'm hesitant to get to a clarifier because I don't want to admit that I'm like Pete's age yet, and I'm just like ready to fall apart and old, and
Yeah.
so I'm really hesitant on and also they did say like it might take 6 months for my eye to get back to the point where it was before, and so it's like, well, I definitely don't want to add a lens to anything that might. So I'm just working around
that
it
might
now.
hinder that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm working around it. And one thing I found too is like I just put on that Ultra View, and it's got a 0.10 pin on it. And that seems to help too if I really dim it down and make it fine. Yeah.
Well, that's a good
Yeah, it's like
start,
really blurry. So like so the Spot Hog, it's like it was so bright I couldn't even see it.
Yeah.
Like it was at the point where it was just it wasn't a pin, it was just a light. And I couldn't even see it.
Just like a starburst. Yeah.
Yeah, but like not like a starburst, like if it's a really sunny day, like not like that, like such a starburst that the pin is
blurry.
The pin is like not there almost. It's like it's just like a efflorescence big blur of a light there, and then I could see the target on the other side of it. So like it's just
it's funny that we talk about this. When I think back of every time I've shot an elk with my bow, I will range them, and like I have a slider, but it's almost like it's always been like 30, 40 or closer, right? But I remember just thinking like there's 5 dots there. And I remember drawing back amber, amber, amber dot, amber dot. And I just repeat that over and over and over again. Or like red dot, or green dot, green dot, green. I just repeat, stay on the dot. It's funny, all the things. Like I don't do that any other time, but like
or you get close enough and it's like what pin, and it's like all of them.
Bury them, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Funny, the human mind is weird.
Yeah, and there's a lot when an elk's closing in on you.
You better get your shit together quick.
It's a lot different than even if you're still in control, but it's like it's a lot different. Like,
yeah, that's where like I say, like
it
the
happens
command shooting is a critical skill that you do. Like as much as I was talking to one other guy, he's like, well, punch, and I'm like, you better learn to punch a little bit.
Oh yeah, you have to.
Because
if you're
hunting, moving,
if you're hunting, you have to punch it. I've pulled my off anchor off my face, like pulled a string off my face and punched it. Like just going like this and then hit it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like you have to have the ability to punch it. And it's just like nothing is just like that. Like it's so close, it doesn't really make a difference. It's that close. It's like it's at the wall. It's like me turning around and hitting this deer. It's like it ain't gonna make a difference, right? But you have to move or else it's over. But you have to punch it. And like we've talked about it before, and like that's the nice thing about a thumb release over like these guys who hunt with a back tension, like Greg and Mark and all those guys. It's like
couldn't imagine that.
No.
Yeah, but I also think that they're not doing the same stuff that we're doing. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't think like Greg's not hunting. He might go on hunting, but he's not pulling in. He's not pulling in. He's not hunting as much as we are. Like he's going out hunting, and his hunting's a lot different than our hunting. So that's the difference, right?
Yeah, especially like timbered stuff. Like I shot a mule deer crouched. Like these are the weird things, right? Like I shot under overhanging brush, like maybe a couple, like my limb almost hit the ground. Like I was so low to the ground.
Oh, I've shot
crazy stuff.
I've shot on my ass, like laying on my butt, draw back and like ab down and like totally off and like hit it. And like just it's a complete like punch of the trigger. Absolute 100, just like no follow through, no nothing, no like It's just squeeze it and then it's like done.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
if your bow goes anywhere, it's gonna hit the ground
Yeah.
or it's gonna hit a bush. Like, yeah, I mean, it happens, but it's like
I had that with an elk where there's trees and a brush, a little bit of bushes and stuff, and the elk, I could see his ass, but I bugled at him, and as he's bugling, I had to walk right to the edge of that. I had to draw back, and I had to literally like lean over, and as soon as I could lean over, he could see me. And I just had to like shoot.
well, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, it's at
Yeah.
full draw and then just like lean back and then hammer it because like he can see you doing. He's watching you. Like, what the fuck is this? And you have like a split second where like he's moving. Yeah. And it's like it's over.
Great.
So, but those are the things that like you can't. It's not. But that's completely different than
target
shooting in a line.
and shooting and trying to have good perfect form. Yeah, I actually started doing shots like shooting.
Well, and that's
in
one
kneeling position or like
yeah,
leaning up and shooting at the seated position. That's
I
shooting
practice
off.
in my low seat all the time,
Yeah.
and in weird positions, and because you have to, you never know when you're going to get caught off.
Well,
guard,
on that
and it's like this is
that
your
balance
one
board
opportunity.
too.
I like
that balance board is good. It's hard as hell, like, but it works really good to sit there and balance, draw back, balance, and get on that thing, and like, eventually you get it where you're like, just enough, and it's like bang, and then that's almost a punch too because it's like you're working in between. It'd be like shooting off a rocking boat where it's like you're down a
In
dip
the
and
wind.
it's, where it's like totally. You just like wait, and I think that's where you were talking too about like that breathing, because like when you're on that little balance board, it's like I'm going forward, backward, forward, and then backward, boom.
Yeah,
like that's when it has to go. Speaking of that, go. I guess we'll sign off, boys.
Yeah,
continue the conversation on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
So today's Wednesday.
No, Tuesday.
No, but tomorrow's when we're gonna drop this on Wednesday. So the people who are listening, it's Wednesday. So we'll be at the show. Derek, you're speaking Friday
and Saturday
Pete,
is
you're
the
rolling
banquet.
in. I might as well just give you directions to the event and just head straight there, Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Saturday. And then so we got, if you're in the stands, you're gonna get something. We got lots of shit to give away. I got a whole bunch of Focus stuff. We got a shit ton of Vortex stuff. We got some good giveaways. We got new boots, some stuff from Kafaru, Sitka. We got Gators. We got a bunch of stuff. So Stuckless is coming up. He's going to join us. I talked to Mike from Hudo. I think he's going to tune in too. He's going to be down there. So I think he's going to come up on stage. And I was trying to get Jesse Zeman up. He hasn't returned any of my texts, but that doesn't mean anything because he never returns any of your texts until he needs something. It's kind of like, how parents describe their kids. They only talk to you when they need something. So anyway, we'll see if we can get him up there. He'll be down there, but maybe we'll get him up and we'll talk about some BC stuff. But I'd like to get into this a little bit more. It'd be fun to talk to just about this kind of stuff. So it's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
it's gonna be awesome.
My bow down
Look
there
forward
too.
to it.
So looking forward to tearing apart my bow and putting new strings and cables on it. And
and we'll go over check your
talk.
site and all that stuff. So clean it up. Okay, guys. Talk to you later.
You betcha.
Friends of NRA is your chance to support our Second Amendment rights and preserve America's hunting traditions. Join Friends of NRA at one of our 600 exciting events nationwide. From games to auctions and exclusive firearms, Friends of NRA events are your chance to support a cause you care about while having a great time with patriots in your community. Whether you're a seasoned shooter, an avid hunter or outdoorsman, or passionate about freedom, there's a place for you within Friends of NRA. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you. Stand up for freedom with the Friends of NRA.
Gear up for the hunt and learn from the best with Deer and Deer Hunting Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV. Tune in every week for expert hunting tips and unforgettable moments in the field. Waypoint TV, your destination for outdoor entertainment.